Yeah, I should use it.
All right, we're about to start the historical commission meeting. I'll wait a minute or two just to make sure that everybody's connected online and whatnot. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Do we have note taker?
Yeah.
Not yet. I can start.
Okay. I'll wait another minute too.
Yeah. Part-time.
Yeah, there's a kind of medical situation, one of the teachers. He's married to another teacher, they're all like 5 years, she's also he's out teaching next door, but he's been out. I was filling for her earlier the year, who they hired somebody else to take.
Yeah. We took the name. You know, for quite a couple of years after you retired, you know, that's not very common.
Yeah, I'm back.
Is it one of the same purpose
It is, it's psychology.
Never tell if that's my vision or just the focus on that thing. It's probably a little bit of both.
Focus.
Politics might.
Is that as good as it gets?
He's the right of the.
It's just, I'm already at that point where I refer to these glasses every once in a while. So I never know if it's, is it me or is it Memorex?
It's a pocket.
All right. We'll get started.
Yeah.
Well, welcome everyone to the Newburyport Historical Commission meeting. This is February 27th, 2025. We're in the senior center here in Newburyport, although we do have at least some participants participating via Zoom. And please be aware that this meeting is being recorded. We'll start off, I guess, with roll call. Andrew Bernhardt.
I'm here.
Excellent. Scott Clark. Yep. Christopher Fay. Here. And Alan Markey, you're online. Can you hear us? Are you present?
Yeah.
Great, thank you. Ed Neumer. Glenn Richards.
Yeah.
Chris Sawtell. Here. And the chair, Biff Bounce, that's me. I'm here.
I'm also here.
Hey, we didn't get Mark on here. I'm sorry about that. Mark Sandrone. Present. Thank you. All right, I think first order of business is a demolition delay for 68 Marlborough Street. Do we have somebody here present to speak on that?
Yeah, where would you like me?
Wherever you're comfortable up here, if you so you can see the board, but also speak to us would be good. So we'll first, if you're familiar with the process at all. Okay, good. So we'll first start with just taking a look at the property and its historical significance, and we'll discuss that first, and then if it gets beyond that, then we'll discuss any plans.
I actually served on the Historic Commission for 6 years.
Oh, great. Well, thank you.
Were the current ordinances in place when you served? About the ECOD and DLD and all that?
No, it was just before all that sort of changed. We had demolition delay.
Oh,
It was
okay.
just the
Oh,
year,
that was the
but
same.
it was the year delay, but then the organization, it all changed a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
Okay, so this is on
Can you give
Marlborough.
your, I'm sorry, can you give your name?
Oh, Liam McGavran.
Okay, thank you.
10 Hancock Street, Newburyport. The property is at 68 Marlborough Street. I don't know much about its history really, besides that it was built probably around 1875. It's referred to in the census as a Victorian side hall cottage. It's just a little house, 1.5 stories. They squeezed 3 bedrooms in there. Very little has changed. I think over time, except most of it, a lot of it has been, gutted on the inside. Probably it reflects like the 70s on the inside. There's a little, a three-season porch on the back that was probably built in the eighties. It's hard to know. But, that's what they're proposing to, the current owners are proposing to take down and reconstruct as a heated space. And then they're gonna make it a tad bigger, 30 inches bigger in one direction, 2 feet bigger towards the back, if I have those numbers right. And then besides that, there's, and I think the main reason I'm here today is because there's a slight roof change at the very back of the house. I would suggest that it's not even a roof change, it's an extension of an existing roof. We're trying not to even change the existing roof at all. Although if you would give us permission to make it a bit thicker, with new rafters, we would be able to properly insulate it. It's at the back of the house, but anyway. So you can see, the addition on the left is what we're proposing to take down, the three-season porch. And the door into the house is gonna change, and it's gonna be from the backside now. And we want to extend that existing roof line down just so that they can get some cover at the entry. And I think that's the reason that I'm here,
Yeah, that's what triggered that.
Alrighty,
right?
any discussions, questions from the board?
I actually have two questions. One, so the red door is going to be, is it gonna be moved or is it gonna be thrown away? Are you gonna
The door
save
itself?
Yeah,
Oh, you know, I'm not sure that is, a period door.
okay.
I know that
It's hard to tell just because it has the window. I just don't know
Yeah.
how old the door-
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's not an insulated door. The front main entry door is a period door and that's not being touched.
And I had just a clarification question for everybody. So is the roof line because the three-season porch is coming down? Or is it because something's gonna replace it that alters the existing roof line of the three-season porch?
Probably both.
Okay.
I would think,
Yeah.
right? I mean, it's
I see.
the removal of,
It just seems
it's a
like
changing of the roof line, I think is
Yeah.
what.
from how it currently
Yeah,
appears right now, okay,
yeah, we usually think of the roof line as the heat at the right at the top.
right,
It's
so
called-
that's not changing, right?
No, well, as long as we're on this, usually this is just historical significance, so I was gonna save my questions
understand.
on,
Yeah.
these questions for
Okay,
later, but
okay.
as long as we're there. They're just extending the roof, so technically it's a roof line change, because it's
Mhm.
replacing the whole roof, so, but it's pretty, as you point out, it's not a major change. So anyway, as long as we're here, I did have one question, you mentioned something about, making the roof thicker with new rafters to allow insulation. Does that refer to just this back portion you're modifying or the
Correct.
entire house?
Just that little
Okay.
back portion.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it'd be that, where that piece where the red door is now, and also the part of rebuilding behind it,
Right.
okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments?
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
this
go for it.
one is about, did you guys, did anyone have a chance, or particularly Leah, have a chance to look into whether the house had any other claim to historical fame, like?
I have not,
Okay,
no.
thanks.
All right, well, if no one has any further comments or questions, I'd be willing to hear a motion that the structure is historically significant and considered for preservation.
So said.
Andrew? Oops, yes. Sorry. And Mark, you second that?
I do.
Okay. I also heard Glenn, but we'll go
Yeah,
with Mark.
that's
All
fine,
right.
that's fine, thanks.
All right, so we're voting on the 68 Marlborough Street structure is historically significant and considered for preservation. We'll start, Andrew,
Yes.
okay? Scott? Yeah. Christopher Fay,
Yes.
Alan Markey,
Yes.
thank you. Ed Normer, oh, he's not here, sorry. Glenn,
Yes,
let's see, Mark Sandro,
Yes.
and Chris,
Yes.
And the chair votes yes as well. That motion passes. And so we now can go on to your to review your demo plan.
By the way, if you need to get up to a point on thing, I bet you're welcome.
How detailed would you like me to get? Because it's, I mean, the demo plan, okay, if you wanna go, if you could go a couple more down. Yeah, that's good. You can see. This is where the porch is coming off in the back. We are removing some of these windows because that's the kitchen, and to reconfigure it, we're just, we're putting in some new windows that are gonna be a little higher off the counter. This window is gonna go because that's gonna become the bathroom. And then there are a couple, opening reconfigurations in the back. The front stays exactly the same, except we will put clapboards on it instead of, shingles. I think that's pretty much the extent of the demo. And yeah, you see the new windows on the kitchen there. We're putting in a couple skylights so that they can have headroom in the bathroom primarily, and then a little bit more light in the bedroom. The rooms are quite small on the second floor. Yeah, and very little has changed on this side, except at the rear, there'll be, the addition is a little longer, and the windows will be insulated windows. And then the very back, you can see we've chosen a new door. Yeah,
So that roof that gets extended, that the one,
oh,
on the
yeah.
left side of this, the one that's the curved down there.
So this is a new roof with a slightly different shape, but that's a 1980s structure anyway.
Okay.
And then this is the existing roof that we've just extended down a little bit.
Okay. We can take any questions or comments from the board right now before open for public comment. Nothing? Okay.
But what, actually,
Yeah.
you mentioned that you, for insulation, you would, what would the change be? It would be higher up?
Oh, well, I mean, I'm talking about maybe before it's reshingled, maybe we put some rigid insulation on the top of the roof that would raise it an inch,
That's an
Inch
inch,
and a half.
okay,
just to give it a little bit more thickness. Yeah.
right,
Cause I'm assuming we haven't opened it up, and I'm assuming they're probably, 2x6 rafters.
With no other comments, we'll see if anyone wishes to speak from the public. Is anyone here that wishes to? Don't see anybody? Anyone online? Okay. All right, then, public comment it is. All right, well, I think, unless anybody else, any more questions or comments about it, I'd look for a motion to the structure is historically significant and preferably preserved.
I'll move that, but
All right. We have a second?
I could second.
Thank you. All right. So we're voting that the structure is historically significant and considered for preservation
preferably preserved.
or preferably preserved. Thank you. All right, Andrew, your vote.
Yes.
Thank you. And Scott?
Yep.
And Chris Fay?
Yes.
Alan Marquis?
Yes.
Thank you. Glenn? Yes. And Mark Syndrome?
Yes.
Thank you. And Chris?
Yes.
Yes, and chair is affirmative as well, so that motion passes, which does mean that the house is under 1-year demo delay, but if we want to, I guess we can move straight to we can lift those plans if anyone has any comment or any strong feelings, either way, we could make a motion that the plans presented are approved and the demo delay is lifted.
I'll make that motion.
All right,
I'll second the motion.
thank you, Mark.
Just for clarity, the motion is to accept the plans.
Plans presented as approved?
Okay.
Yes, correct. Thank you.
A bit different process than I was used to.
For us too.
It's only my first time doing this, so. Anyways, okay, so yes, we're voting plans presented are approved and the demo delay would be lifted. Start with Andrew
Yes.
and Scott. Yep. Thank you. And Chris Fay,
Yes.
Alan Markey.
Yes.
Thank you. And Glenn.
Yes.
All right, and Mark.
Yes.
Thank you. And Chris.
Yes.
And I vote affirmative as well. So motion is passed and demo delay is delivered.
Thank you. You had to vote 3 times. Back in
Yeah.
the day, you only had to vote twice.
Yeah.
Yeah, cumbersome, but.
Well, also, but back in the day, you'd have to come to 2 meetings, because back then they hadn't noticed the first meeting of historical significance to include the public hearing thing, which has to be
Right.
public notice and all that, so it's kind of got squished together into 1 meeting now.
Yeah.
Better for you.
Well,
Thank
thank you so much. Okay. All right, so we have got a couple of DOD and DCOD advisories. First one looks like 234 Merrimack Street. Do we have someone here? Yep. Hey, good evening. If you give your name and address for record.
Nick Landry, DRT Architects, for the architects on the project. My address is, the office address, 546 East Broadway.
Thank you.
In Boston. I think the building owner, Mike Costello, is also on the call. I think he might say something, and I think he's in the hospital right now with his father, so
And then we also have Nick Carvello.
that's okay. Mike,
Okay.
That's all.
Yeah, I am on the line. I don't know if you hear me, but happy to chime in when and if necessary.
great.
I put my camera on if I could figure it out here.
Yeah, go
Sorry,
ahead.
I haven't done this, I haven't done one of these before. but
Yeah,
should I
go
walk
ahead.
through the presentation?
Yeah, that'd be great. Thank you.
So we're proposing, there's a small, it's called, in the study, it says it's A-style, so it's kind of like a gambrel on the property today, and we're proposing to fully demolish it. It's a single family and turn it into 4 units. If you want to go to the next slide, please.
Is that the brown one?
Yeah, yes, yeah. So I think we're, sorry. We're right here in an industrial zone as well, so it's not a residential zone, so I think we're gonna need a, change of use for that as well, if you wanna go to the next slide, please. So this is the property here. Sorry. We're right here, this is Merrimack Street, and this is the building, you can see it's a very deep lot, and the building, as you can see, the building today is, it's set back a little bit from the street, but it's not very long. We go to the, we have another slide that shows a much longer building from 1924, so I'm not sure when this was actually built. So this is just kind of a plan of the area showing some houses we have some inspiration from for our design. So this map here is from 1924, and it looks like the building was significantly deeper at that time. And it seems like there may have been 3 units there. There's 3 addresses on here, so we're not quite sure. We went to the building department, sorry, I'm blocking you. We couldn't find any historical building permit, but it seems like it's probably sometime after this, and we'll get into this in a minute. All of the foundation walls are CMU. There's a lot of strange structural things going on with the house, so I don't know if there was a fire or whatnot. We're gonna go to the next slide, please. So our property is here, and it's inventory. It's listed as inventory. Go to the next slide, please. So here, the listing it says that it's circa 1900. I think there's no talk about the 1924 comment. I'm gonna go to the next slide, please. So picture of the house, as you mentioned, is it's a brown house today. It's set back and pretty far from the street. A lot of the other houses are pulled closer. And again, it doesn't go that deep into the lot. So this is a view from Merrimack Street, dead on the side. There's a bunch of context photos you can keep going through. Views looking down the street, there's a couple views from behind too, and you can see how deep that lot is, I think it's the next slide. Yeah, next one. It's a quite, we're very, there's a lot of large yard left, and I think we're trying to maximize the number of units.
That fence at the property line?
This,
Right.
this one, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, if you wanna go to that slide, yeah. So this is our proposed design, which kind of creates this 4 townhouses. With parking, and there's some parking at the rear. And we've reviewed this with the fire department. I think there was we wanted to make sure that the fire truck get in, turn around. It seems like everyone is on board with this particular layout. If you wanna go to the next. So today, we've got 2 stories. We're gonna be about, 3 stories now to 2.5 with the dormers. And as the building kind of goes down the site, we step it down and try to maximize the views for all the units. It's another view kind of looking over, this is the existing house here, and you can see how shallow it is and a lot set back. This design kind of steps that back and creates some outdoor space for each of the units. So we had a structural engineer walk through, and after, his walkthrough, he noticed several things. There's all the floor framing is 2 ways. When you walk in the house, the floor slopes to each side. There's also a lot of temporary columns, lolly columns, the twist type, in the basement. And there's a lot of cracks in the foundation walls, all CMU will be mentioned. So, and the floor is dirt in the basement. So it seems like, I don't know if someone put a foundation in and moved this house here or what, but it doesn't seem to quite align.
sorry, you define CMU, what is
If you go to the next
that?
one, like concrete blocks.
Oh, okay.
If you go to, so you can kind of see here, some of it's been stuck out over, but there's some cracks here along
I
the
knew
block
it
lines.
was an acronym or something.
You go to the next slide, I think you can see, again, there's just some more cracks. Please. There you go, so there's a real clear picture of the CMU, and the temporary columns that are, clearly been there for quite a while. And then this is kind of a view of what's there today, and then the style that we're proposing.
All right, do we have any questions, comments from
Yeah,
the board?
I'm just curious, do you, maybe I missed
Yeah.
it. Do you guys or anybody in the room have a sense of how old the house is?
Well, so the house is listed as 1900,
Okay.
circa 1900, but the map that we found from 1924, clearly, the house that was on the property in 1924 is clearly deeper than what's there today, it's that red one.
Right, yeah,
So we think it's sometime after that. I think the structural engineers seem to think it was maybe in the 50s or 60s because of the construction.
in terms of the house or in terms of where it's sitting?
The foundation.
I forgot.
Did you look at any later, Sanborn maps or city maps or anything to try to?
This was the only one we could find, and I think when I had gone to the building department, it sounded like there was maybe some issue with files from a flood or something.
Oh, really?
So
So there's no images of this house?
not that we could find.
30s, 40s, or that would be with the historic time frame, okay. Does anyone have like an opinion on
I do.
that?
That 1924 map has been used in Newburyport up until the late 60s. If you notice on the map, we look where Route 1 is, you still see the boundary lines, but all the houses are erased.
Right.
They're taken off. This is still sitting on it. It's the fact also, it's red outline, meaning that originally it was built in stone, brick or something. That's what the red outline is for.
Yeah.
The house that's there now, I was wondering, I was like, I wonder if that was a piece maybe of this piece of property originally, that was just maybe modified or cut down or something, because it's this building was still there on the map, which means it wasn't taken down or because it wasn't erased. That was just my thoughts on that. And also stark context, if you go back farther enough, this land and the land around it was owned by James Blood, who built a whole lot of workers' houses up on Monroe Street. that, he was,
Those brick houses, those brick structures.
I'm not sure where in Monroe Street it was, but
It's mostly those, little, like. The gable end facing homes that are real small, narrow, right up and down the street.
but he
It
was,
doesn't fit, it doesn't, like the house, I've seen the house, and, you know, we all driven past it. I don't think I've ever noticed, it doesn't seem to architecturally fit at all.
yeah, it's unusual, it really is.
Could I,
60s or 70s structure that, or something like that, that. A little funky, I don't know, I'm just trying to get
Yeah,
a sense of it.
Was that one trying to say something?
that was me, that's the owner, Mike Costello.
Oh,
Maybe I could give you a little bit more, that might be helpful. So when I purchased this property about 6 or 7 years ago, we had the intention of building our family residence. I live on Broad Street, and I was moving down, we were talking about moving down the street with the views. Went into it thinking I could, you know, rehab it, sort of bought it in that rush when everyone was buying, and I bought it sight unseen. I just made the deal with the buyer who needed to get out, and we went in and cleaned it out. We looked at it. It was really quickly, you realize you really couldn't spend much money on it the way it was. It would need a new foundation, need to you know, completely gut it, completely raise it. So I actually asked, when I was in the legislature, did a lot of work with Tom Coltejohn and over at the Powerhouse and other preservation areas. So I asked Tom if he would come over and take a look at the house and give us an idea of the historic, you know, value of the structure, or what I would need to do. Would I need to go for a demo? Would I need to come and find historic for any other reason? He was kind enough to come down with Karen Holt. Now, this is a 5-year or 6-year-old conversation. Again, it was for purposes of building a residential, and clearly have the highest regard for Tom, as I'm sure you all do. And so I don't want to paraphrase, but I think in this process, you're going to do a further investigation. So maybe I would encourage, if someone has an opportunity to talk to Tom, when they came in and they looked at the structure of the house, and I'm not a builder at all, but they quickly assessed that it wasn't, it was more of a newer build based on, they looked at the basement, they looked at the floors, they looked all the way in each room, then they looked up in the attic. I think they saw the mess that it was in, but they also saw, you know, you know, how it was structurally put together, and didn't really see any markings of a historic building. So I don't know if that's helpful to you, and as you go through the process, and clearly, you know, our goal, you know, I live here, I've made my career here, and plan to stay here. So I want to make sure whatever we do is appropriate. In fact, I said to Tom afterwards, hey, maybe we'll put a replica, some sort of a replica, like the house next to it, a Gambrel. And he, you know, I think wisely said, hey, sometimes those look worse, and they're not, we'd rather not have a replica. That was the view of him with Preservation Trust. So, you know, we worked hard, we developed architectural plans, and then candidly found another property down on Water Street that my wife and I bought, and went through that process with that property. And this is sat for about 5 years. When you go into the place, it really is, I think the engineer does a pretty good job, but I'd encourage, if you wanted to go see it, it would be almost impossible to rehab that. And just the way that they put those columns in the basement, they line up a whole, there's only 2 structures that hold the whole house up in the basement, running from the front of the house to the back with columns. And with that foundation over the years cracking, every corner of that house is now sagging. So if you drop a marble on any floor, depending on where you are in the center of the house, will roll to one of the 4 corners. So it is kind of just completely dropping on that piece. And clearly, you know, again, I don't like I thought about siding it. I thought about trying to put a Band-Aid on it. But it would be, you know, good money after bad. And I don't think you could do much with it. So that was sort of where we were. And as to, you know, the design, you know, we're looking, you know, Nick put together what he thought would fit. It's, as Nick said, it's a first draft and, you know, regardless, I know that you got, I don't know the whole process candidly with, the Historic Commission. We did it, we went through it with a rehab of our house on Water Street, but with a demo and a rebuild, looking at the new plans, you know, clearly we want to make something that fits there, that, you know, gives the people that buy there a beautiful view, but also fits in with the, existing structures. And so we're open to any tweaks to that too. So I'll stop talking, but that might give you a little bit, you know, Tom's opinion is sort of, for me was, it gave me enough comfort that I wouldn't have to go through a ton of hoops, but, you know, I don't know how this process completely goes at this point. Because like I said, the only time I've come to the commission was to redo a house that we currently live in. And it was a smooth process, but we were rebuilding on that one. Okay, I'll stop and thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you. It was actually very helpful. But so at this point, what our role basically is to decide if we want, or basically decide how we want to advise the DCOD on how this should proceed. It's not, we're not voting yes or no whether or not these plans could be approved, is the way I understand it. So so really right now we're just kind of looking to see what we feel like the impact of this demo would be, and you know what the new structure would, how that would fit in the historic context.
I mean, comment about this?
Yeah, go for it.
Just that, you're correct, that we only deliver a report to the ZBA. I think this reminds me a little bit of I think it was Norman Ave, where I think the house itself, in my personal opinion, doesn't have a whole lot of historic interest or value, but we might have to take a look at how the plans might affect the streetscape, and you get into that whole discussion, or whatever that's worth. And Mr. Costello suggested, you know, we want to look at it. I'm not sure, that leave that up to you guys to decide if you feel you want to do that or not. But to me, losing that particular structure wouldn't be a big detriment, but I think that maybe my fellow commissioners maybe you've already thought about the streetscape and all of that.
Yeah, I think we would, oh, sorry. We'd be very interested in working with the commission on the streetscape. Again, it's kind of weird. It's got that little building next to it. That's the, you know, part of me wanted to build a brick industrial look to it. Because you got the toll building on one side, two down, and then you have this little brick structure next to me. So yeah, we'd be interested. The other thing is Tom had mentioned, hey, you probably want to bring it out towards the street to make it even with the street. So in any case, we would definitely be interested in working with you on design and, you know, how that fits in.
Excellent, thank you.
In your
Yeah.
presentation, did you
I
have
think
anything that shows it in
We should do a
context?
site visit personally, because if
Some of the-
they're,
some of the-
if it's being recommended
Yeah.
to raise the entire
Yeah,
building,
there's a.
I think the commission at least owes it to the
Okay.
city to visually look at it before approving.
Thank you.
That's my thoughts.
Thanks, Caitlin.
So, so Chris brings up a point that since the plan is to completely remove this building and the historic significance, I think, is at best undetermined. I think it might be good if we could do a site visit, just so that maybe we can put some questions to bed on, you know, in our own heads and really know and get an idea of what we're talking about. I agree with Glenn that at first glance, I don't think this is something that's you know, outstanding or something that needs to necessarily be saved from demolition, but I think that it's, you know, it's our due diligence to at least look and make sure that what we're talking about is indeed not that old, or maybe is, and there's something else hidden in there that we don't know about, but so maybe we can is there a good time that we could make an appointment to?
Sure.
We also, I mean, We can absolutely do that, I think, but we also have a full 3D scan of the property, if that would be helpful, if that's better.
What?
Like a 3D scan of the
Oh,
whole
I see.
existing building, and now it's just on.
I mean, it would, I'm sure it'd be helpful to have for us to review, so yeah.
Yeah, sure, we'll send the link for that, and then, I guess we can coordinate with Mike, I think access is pretty easy.
Okay.
Should I do that through Caitlin?
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do
Okay,
that through
right.
email after, so.
Okay,
Yeah,
perfect.
so you want that on a weekend basis, or you can, because you will work weekdays, right?
Yeah, well, we can figure it out through email and figure out when their schedule works.
Okay.
Work around that.
Yeah.
All right,
So should we continue, the next meeting date, or are you satisfied after the site visit, you can write your report?
yeah, I think we should, unless there's anything else, I don't think you guys have any more to present really to us, and unless we have any more questions, I think we can table this until after we do our site visit.
So you're saying you
We'll do
want to continue to the next meeting date?
I actually have one question. You're putting 4 units in. What was the logic of the number of units and also the length of the building?
So I think the length of the building, a lot of it was driven by access with the fire truck. And the setback with some of the other buildings down the street, and we have, I think it's 2 doors down from here is another 4-unit building, right next to us, a
Okay.
3-unit building, same kind of lot depth.
Okay,
I'm trying to remember from the elevations, so those have garages or all parking outside?
Yeah, there's some parking at the back, and there's also each unit would have a garage space,
Yeah,
to
Yeah, that's actually a 4-unit, right to my left is, a 4-unit, it was a, 4 units with parking out back, and, it's a 2-family to my right, if you're looking at the river. Well, if you go right to the corner, if you go to Toll, it's a 3-family Federalist. Then you have a 4-unit house right next to that. Then you had mine, which was, I think, a 2-family at one point, and the owner, just for tax purposes, took out the 2. Then you have that little restaurant, and then you have a 2-family, well, the butchery and the mixed use. And based on conversations with planning, you know, for a long time, I didn't know if there was an availability to get a use of units, or a change. But it looks like because it's the I-2 zone, it might actually be a permitted use. I think Andy and his team over there have, looked at this and, you know, determined that you could do a multi-use there or a multi-unit there. So it's more than 2, I believe. And, you know, going longer was, what we determined to be best, but, again, you know, we're flexible on what we're doing at this point, so look forward to getting your guidance on it.
great, thank you. Caitlin, what were you saying?
So do you feel like you want to, see the applicant back here at the next meeting to go over your site visit, or do you feel like you have enough to write your report for the ZBA?
I think we can write the report, but I'll probably wait until we have a site visit, so that.
You can't deliberate at the site visit, so even if the
Right.
applicant doesn't come in, you want to discuss it back at the meeting.
Yeah, so we
Yeah.
probably should continue to
Yeah.
the meeting.
Got it, yeah, okay, all right, so yeah, we'll
So the next meeting
continue
is
that.
March 11th.
Do we need a motion to continue, or are we good?
Yeah.
Yes.
Should have one.
Okay,
I'd like to make a motion that we continue this discussion until our next meeting.
all right then.
I'll
Second,
second it.
all right, Glenn, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, we'll vote on continuing this, Andrew
Yes.
and Scott. Yep. And Chris Fay
Yes.
and Alan Markey,
Yes.
thank you. And Glenn,
Yes.
thank you. And Mark Sitter. Yep. Thank you, and Chris.
Yep.
And Chair is yes as well, so we'll continue this on to the next meeting, and hopefully we can set up time for us to do this quick site visit for.
I'll reach out to you tomorrow, because we're going to, so I'll plan to come back here.
Yeah.
The 13th, sorry, yeah,
Okay.
next week.
And it's just
Thank you.
natural.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Have a great night.
4957 Merrimack Street. Do we have somebody here for that?
Yes.
Good. Can you just give your name and address for the record?
You're right. Like your architectural side, right? Good. Right. Put them on that.
Yeah, just give your name and address for the record. and
So
Go
on the
ahead.
record, Nick Bracknell, 13 Picard Street over in Amesbury. With me tonight is Scott Brown from Scott Brown Architects here in Newburyport. We are representing Renee Bernard, who's also in the room in the back. He's the owner of the property at 49 to 57 Merrimack. Renee also lives next door in the building at the corner next to the police station. I think it's 43 to 41 to 45 Merrimack. So just before we jump off this slide, I wanted to point out, I've been working with Renee on this project for at least formally no less than 8 years. It's kind of pathetic how long we've.
How long have we known each other?
Well, we've known each other for 20 years, but we started in front of the planning board, I think in 2017 was our first visit for a pre-application conference. This image you see on the first slide was a rendering we had done from Rob Leanna, who we frequently see in a lot of projects. Rob did this back in 2019, and we did our second. We've done at least 2 pre-application conferences with the planning board and maybe 3 over the 8 years. For a number of reasons, the project is stalled and, we've reconstituted the design team a couple of times. We're very happy we finally, I think the problem we had for a long time was not convincing Scott to work on the project. He put one toe in the water and something else would come up, we'd hire somebody else, it wouldn't quite work out. I've worked with Scott for more than 20 years, at least 15 doing this kind of stuff. And you guys know what his work is all about, it's fantastic. And so, I wanted to just throw this image up there. The renderings that we have in our 2025 version, we think are better. We got feedback from the planning board and staff over that 8-year period. The building you're gonna see is very similar to this, but we've tried to incorporate suggestions we picked up along the way with a few years between each conversation. So with that in mind, we just introduced the design team. You've got Scott here doing the architecture. I've been doing the sort of land use permitting. Steve Sawyer at Millennium are doing the site plan. So we'll go to the next slide, which outlines the permitting. I think I'm learning a lot of this project about what I don't know about the code. I think we need 4 special permits for this project and a site plan review. The 4 special permits include the DOD, I think at the bottom, which I pulled out to the Historic Commission, but we've got a building height of 46 feet, and I think a special permit is needed under the ordinance to go from 40 to 48. So we're proposing 46. So we need a special permit from the planning board for that. We have a special permit for the ITIF, the Intermodal Transportation Improvement Fund. We are proposing that I think it's 7 or 8 spaces, pardon me for forgetting, that we need for the commercial ground floor use. We have 2,500 square feet of ground floor retail, office, or restaurant potentially, but it's commercial. We have programmed it for office or retail. So the 7 or 8 spaces that are needed for that, we don't have on site, so we're seeking a special permit to pay into the fund to be able to use municipal parking for the commercial use. We have enough off-street parking for the 16 residential units that up to 16. We're not sure on the actual number, but the high water is 16. The floor plans you were given, either you were given or not, they're in the presentation, show 16 units, and we have on-site parking for those. You'll see it in the presentation. And then the last thing, special permit we need to go with the site plan review is for the multifamily use with the mixed use building. Okay, next slide, please. So our general project goals, looking at this project, it's pretty obvious. It's a big parcel. It's a ½ acre. It's this big gaping hole on Merrimack Street, and it's been that way since urban renewal. I think in the late 60s, the 3 buildings that were there that were wood frame, probably 2.5 stories, things glommed onto them over 100 years to make them mixed use with ground floor commercial uses and residential multifamily uses above. They're all cleaned out in the 60s in urban renewal. and this gas station found its way into the site. The building that's on the site was built in '69. I don't know what the name of the original gas station was, Renee might know, but you know, I knew it as Gibbs when I showed up in Newburyport. That's been gone for a long time and it's been a parking lot. What we're really trying to do here is obviously revitalize this block and this really important gateway into downtown Newburyport. And Scott and I did the project, you know, the other side of the parking garage where the old Sunoco station used to be, and Steve Country Day driving school used to sit. So I think this is sort of the next important project to reestablish that street wall, that edge, and reactivate it and have ground floor commercial uses. So we're really trying to rebuild it and rebirth the sort of damage that was done in urban renewal, even, you know, over in this neighborhood. There were a lot of buildings that were removed in urban renewals on this section of Merrimack. So we're trying to reconnect and activate that street edge. And not just with a building that's built up to build the street wall, reestablish it, but also the streetscape improvements. We've got brick sidewalks at the garage and the intersection where this building was lifted. Maybe unfortunately at some point in the '80s, that building was lifted on the corner to establish what used to be a yoga studio. I don't know what was there originally in the '80s. But there's brick there all the way down in front of the garage, as you guys all know, and Renee's got brick in front of his building, and you have this big bituminous gravel void, which makes up this property. So obviously a 6-year-old could figure this out. We're gonna like stitch it back together, put the bricks down, the period lights, introduce street trees where they're appropriate, create a real sense of entry to that building in the middle of that facade. Next slide, please.
Quick change slides. Is it an illusion or did the building change? No, it seemed like on the title slide,
Yeah.
it looked a whole lot bigger than the building on the corner. The one I still think it was Kneppel Lakewood Street. Remember that?
Renee's house? Or the
I don't
little,
know.
the blue one.
Yeah, the
wood
one
frame.
on the corner of
Yeah,
Green.
yes. Green, that's where Renee lives, yeah.
Yeah, okay. And but in this picture, it looks more to an appropriate scale. Is that just an illusion?
It is an illusion. The footprint is essentially the same. There could be a few
Might be
feet.
more the height than the, but it hasn't
Yeah,
changed.
The height is tightened up over time.
So it's-
But it
not-
would
not
be,
partly an
it'd still be
illusion.
pretty de minimis.
Yeah.
To pick that up with your eye, we're talking about a foot maybe. You know, it wouldn't have taken that much out of the height. I don't, maybe 2 feet. Might have been 48 and it's 46 now.
2 feet can make-
Yeah, you're right. Sorry, next slide. Please.
Pardon the interruption.
No, don't worry about it. So our design approach is at least 4 steps. There's probably 40. It's given us 8 years. But obviously understanding those existing conditions, the shape of this lot, the context of what's on either side, including the police station and the right of way or the driveway they have there with the bike racks, the stolen bike sit, the variety of wall material that's going along, supporting the back of the site, the building next door, the timbers, there is a large tree in the back, Norway maple, thankfully, that we're gonna be removing. That's in the back corner of the site, but anyway. Looking at the existing conditions, obviously understanding the context of this site, understanding the history of the site, looking at those same assessors maps that started in the 20s and people amended over a 40-year time period, probably in the assessor's office or wherever they were, adding and taking away buildings. So understanding what was here on this site, and developing this. It's probably more than a conceptual building and site plan now, but developing what we felt was our preferred scenario, getting 8 years of input with 2 or 3 years between conversations, and then coming into a public process and starting a conversation with both you and the planning board and the public through that process and making refinements as need be. So that's the way we've approached this very slowly. Next slide, please. Bless you. Existing conditions, again, it's almost a half acre, 17,000 square feet. So there's a lot of frontage, 180 feet almost on Merrimack Street. You can see it in the images on the right. It's in the B2 district. It's not a vacant. The building is got some storage in it, but it's for all intents and purposes vacant. It's not run as a business. Renee has people storing some stuff in the building, dry storage. And there's a commercial parking. It functions as a commercial parking lot with a third party running the parking system on the lot for Renee through a lease. The structure was built in 1969 is what it's estimated to have been built. The garage and the service station building that's in the back of the site. And, you know, we talked about the unique features, this gap tooth, the fact that it's a large parking lot with bituminous parking. It's really not contributing in every possible manner when you look at the streetscape. Got a wide curb cut, and I did put in the application, I can't remember, but 30-40 cars fit on that site handily if they're packed in. So it's exactly what we don't want, I think, I hope. Next slide, please. So the building's about 2,000 square feet, single story, again, vacant. I'd say it's fair condition rather than poor. I mean, Renee can add to that. It's not great. There's nothing historically significant about the building to me. I don't say that lightly. I would think if a Form D was done for this, that would be determined. I would like to think if they know what they're doing, it's a non-contributing structure.
I think probably quite intrusive.
Yeah.
So they probably.
Yeah.
Labor.
And I think there's no doubt there's an adverse impact of what you see, what you get with this property if you are abutting it. So this is an opportunity to fix an adverse condition, which is why we're here. You see some of the site photos there. Just again, that does not look like downtown Newburyport, and we're crossing the Black Cow. So, the next slide, please. Relatively flat topography. There's no stormwater treatment on the site, and there hasn't been. It was, I believe it was previously paved before they took the tanks out long ago, and the gravel. So the site has gone through site remediation that was done a long time ago. But there's a lot of gravel out there. And again, it's non-contributing land use structure and congruent land use pattern and all the obvious shortcomings of the site. Next slide, please. So the context, again, you guys know it well. It's a gateway location on Merrimack Street from Route 1 into the downtown. It's got a mix of 1920 and 20th century building structures, mixed uses from the garage. Most of the buildings down there are either commercial or mixed use, running from Route 1 Market Street into the square. The building in the lower right is the one Scott and I worked on a few years ago at the other end of the block. Next slide, please.
That's Summer Street.
Sorry?
That's Summer Street.
Market, and must be somewhere coming down on Route 1, right? Yeah. Okay, this just gives you what I described earlier. I put 1950, I think the plan set I looked at, it's that same set of assessors maps from the beginning that have been altered with the colors. But you can see how there were 3 buildings and some outbuildings that were on that site, again, pre-urban renewal. In the right-hand side, those buildings existed in the McIntyre map in 1851 over on the left, so they're pretty static for a long time until they were removed. Obviously, like most of Newburyport, most communities that built in this manner, there's a strong street wall, a build-to line, right? That clearly was lost. Next slide, please. So I'm somewhat repetitive here. I see I got sort of the goals here twice, but in terms of designing the building, we felt, and we Scott and I are doing this repeatedly in multiple locations. We really wanted to work with Renee as our client to adhere to traditional design principles in designing this building. So building placement, massing, scale, volume, the texture of the building, the rhythm of the building, the punched openings for the door, the windows, having the windows be operable, not a plate glass, our comfort zone is not sliding down into the contemporary end of the building design. That's just not what we do. I don't, he might. Don't speak for myself, sorry. The stuff I do with him is not like that. So like the building on the corner where we've got contemporary elements on that Market Street Summer Market, you know, there's telltales on it. You can tell it's a new building, but it really pays homage to Newburyport and that federal look with the compressed third floor and the shape of the building and the rounded corner. So those character defining elements that make Newburyport so special to all of us are what, you know, we're trying to capture in the design of this building. So it's important for us not to come in with something modern or contemporary. That's not our comfort zone. We think it's not always and often appropriate for a location like this to try that, take that risk. So that's how we approached designing the building way back before Scott was even involved, back when you saw the rendering at the front, which is fairly consistent with what you're seeing tonight from Scott's hand. We started with that. We've been working on that. We struggled with that when we changed out our design team members, that there was a tendency from the design professionals who weren't Scott. It was sandwiched in between what we started with, which was essentially my work with the artist, and then Scott on the back end. We did entertain and work with other architects because he wouldn't join forces. And there was a tendency to pull away from those traditional design principles and make this building start to create this real tension between the buildings on either side and the building across the road. And in fact, we struggled to come up with what we could internally agree with that other designer. We took that to the planning board, and it was quite criticized by the planning board members as to the deviations we were making from that original image, which I fully agreed with. So that's why we switched gears, talked them into joining the team, and here we are again, 3 years later. Actually, 3 years later since that last visit to the planning board. So again, we're trying to design in context, the scale, massing, volume, reestablish the street wall, have a mixed use building to activate the sidewalk and the pedestrian experience on Merrimack. And at the same time, we're gonna put residential units here, be creative and innovative as best we can to create amenities in this building that make it more livable for somebody to have a downtown apartment or condominium, a dwelling unit. So having some outdoor space was important for as many of the units, again, without overpowering the outside of the building and the people that are passing by. And make sure we have enough off-street parking in a cost-effective manner to support at least the residential users that are on the site. Next slide, please. So we struggled with, we probably spent 3 months trying to pick out a railing for the balconies, seriously. So I canvassed the whole downtown for 5 hours and took photos of all those things and some. That's what I brought down to a composite image of balconies, projecting signs, three-dimensional projecting signs, lighting, the cornice lines, the brick molds around the windows, and whether you're using brownstone or whether you're gonna chamfer the corners. There's a lot of stuff that's just awesome. I discovered a lot of things after living here for more than 30 years that I hadn't seen just by walking around with the camera. So we took this composition and spent that couple of months going back and forth on things like the balconies, the railings, the marquee, or the actual door canopy. How wide is it? Looking at Talbot's, looking at some of the other buildings that have these, Talbot's obviously monumental being the theater, but trying to introduce some forms in a different manner that would complement what you have downtown in Newburyport. So anyway, want to just throw it in there to give you a sense of what we've done with some of our 8 years. Next slide, please. So looking at the site plan, there you see the existing and proposed again. That's the new building on the lower, so it's very similar. And I guess you saw that earlier. It's still a little bit different than the front slide. It's 32,000 square feet, 4 stories, with the ground floor being commercial, 2,500 square feet, up to 16 residential units. We don't know exactly how many, but that won't be more than that. Has a 24-foot two-way driveway over between Renee's building and this building. I see it now. And it has 25 off-street parking spaces on the rear, some 12 tucked under the back of the building, and the rest next to the police station.
So on the parking, me what program was curious. The other structure that used looks like they put in some kind of mechanized system.
Oh, that one, yes.
Yeah, very plan to do that.
No, not doing lifts here.
Okay.
No, not unless we have to, because the special permit doesn't work out, but we don't suspect that'll be a problem.
Okay.
Next slide, please. Yep, so this is a look at the site plan a little bit differently. You see the 2 blue areas of the commercial space. It's not impossible. There could be 1 user, but it's likely to be 2 because we have that central lobby coming in through the main door to get to the elevator and the main stairwell to get to the upper floor units. There, we have a projection on the front. Again, we're trying to just break up that massing a bit, as the building is fairly long. And we've stepped back the 2 stairwells that are going up, in those recessed corners. And you can see, I think we've ended up with less than 12 underneath in the end, because we put the bike storage area over on the left. All those parking spaces you see next to the handicap spaces, those are all undercover on the ground floor of the building. So the ground floor only has that commercial space on the front, and the rest is parking in the back, and then the parking at the lower end of the image is all open to the sky next to the police station.
There's a dotted line there which
Yeah.
represents
It's the back of the building on the second floor.
Oh,
Yeah, that's what
okay.
that is. You'll see it when we go through the
So it's
elevation.
on columns or something.
Yeah, yeah.
Got it.
So there's only a basement underneath the front piece. There will be a basement under that, right? Full basement. Yep. But this will be slab on grade where the cars are. And you see the curb cut there. So this spun around and Merrimack's at the top
Yeah,
and the little blue house on the left. Next slide, please. Landscape plan, there's not a lot of room here to put a lot of vegetation, but we are proposing a couple of street trees. As well as trees where they can be accommodated at the back of the site, and the rest of it's going to be just softening the edges with hedges and flower beds. And then a lot of brick to bring, we're expecting to have the public have the ability to get onto the brick areas where the benches are in those 2 recessed corners. You can see a little black rectangle, that's a public bench to sit on. Okay, next slide, please. Solid waste is down in the lower right there at the back of the site. Okay, is that the next line?
What's at the back of the right?
It's not moving, but,
Okay, you got it
Oh,
twice.
that's just.
oh, I have it twice?
Yeah.
Sorry. Good, okay. So this is Scott's work, so I'll give it a pass and, I won't pass it to Scott, I'll give it a shot and Scott can clean up if I miss something, but. Again, this is the street facing facade. We've got a cut stone base, so it's a veneer stone, and it's a brick building. Probably would like a Moran restoration brick, I'm guessing something like that, with a pretty thin mortar joint, so it's gonna look more like a historic building.
Yeah, so a water struck brick,
Yeah.
which is typical for downtown.
The black pieces you see are all, they're all metal, black metal balconies, and that's the door canopy at the bottom, at the center of the building. We're probably gonna use a precast, like a limestone base, maybe, could be granite, but that's meant to be a stone base in the bottom of the building, right? And it's a veneer, couple inches thick. What else we got, Scott? We've, the penthouse level, if you wanna call it that, it's recessed about 7 feet, I think, off the front facade. There's a parapet wall, so if you're standing up there, you wouldn't see anybody till they get sort of chest high, if there's right up against the 42 inches at least, the parapet wall. So there really isn't a need as designed for a railing on top of the parapet, but if there is a railing, it would be short, if we decided to.
And you said that light gray.
The light gray.
At about 7 feet, you said?
Yes, on the street side, it's closer to the back wall on the back, but on the street side, so there's outdoor roof decks for the 2 units that are on the top, left and right. So they can get out on that space, but the good news, I think, by design, is that we won't see those people unless they're standing right up on the wall looking over. Or any of the junk they put out there.
I saw on this, the back, the second and third floor was gonna be cementatious.
Yeah, we're gonna get to that.
Okay, but on the front, is that also clapboard, or on the 4th floor, is that some sort of panel?
It's a metal panel,
Okay,
yeah, so that's the contemporary nod to
That's, got it.
to again soften the top and. Yeah,
Okay.
that's,
Yeah, interesting, it has a psychological effect too.
Get our bowing groove on.
Yeah.
That was, and you probably did this consciously between the setback, the color change, all that makes the building not 3
Right,
stories,
almost
4 stories.
that's the goal,
Yeah,
right? Because we really have a 3-story streetscape,
Yeah.
right? So we're trying to respect that. And pushing that back this 6, I think 7 and a bit, is gonna make it really
The penthouse is clearly not a traditional element, so
Right.
it sort of gives us license to do something a little different out there. to,
Yeah,
Separate it from what's happening below.
right. 2 over 2 windows, double hung, so, yeah, with spacer bars and. true divided, simulated true divided.
And the pattern here is very similar to what's happening across the street at Merrimack Street.
Yeah, maybe that one. Yeah. Not to get too detailed about it, but it looks like you've got like the lintels and stuff and the sills on the windows, it looks like you've got
The corbel,
yeah, are they like, looks like stone or they're gray, not brick?
they're intended to be,
A cast
yeah,
stone,
cast,
right?
probably a cast, yeah. Yeah. You know, the beauty of the cast stone is we've got a lot of freedom with color, you know, you can replicate a brownstone pretty easy like City Hall, like what we did there. It's pretty difficult to see the difference, the coloring over time is where you see the difference with the precast, but it would all be new, so it would age well. They could be granted,
But I think the real reason we're pivoting to the cast stone is that we're seeing if, you know, the granite failing in a couple of
definitely.
locations, so we're really, really concerned about that. You know?
You'll see a lot of, like, I just came from Portsmouth, there's a lot of polished granite on the bottom of the buildings and it's delaminating. Nobody's exactly sure why, you know, a lot of people think it's the, you know, they're guessing. The sidewalk spray that they're putting down, the salt. I'm sure it's accelerating what's going on, but there's something, and it's pretty ubiquitous, you'll see that in a lot of.
We're seeing that happen to our building at the bottom of Market Street.
Oh, yeah.
6 Market Street, it's starting to fall already.
Yeah,
Not sure what's causing it, you know.
probably is an answer if you Google, because it's been going on for like 20 years, the situation. How they're quarrying it, but I don't know. But good question, we're looking at, precast stone on the bottom and lintel sills. Oh, well, at least it's sills. Okay, next slide, please. Think that this is the side image, right? Which can look a little funky when you put your eyes on it the first time. That is a clapboard, cementitious, like a hardy plank, clapboard look, smooth side out. Probably the reveal he can speak to, it's probably maybe not as tight as a 4, but it's intended to look like a wood sided 6-inch, reveal. Same double hung windows, you know, on the second and third floor, the railing system, it's a decorative railing system. You know, we're still noodling on some of this stuff, but this is what we decided to put forward to as an opener to the conversation about the railing pattern. But there you see the cars tucking in behind it, and we're down to the 9 or 10 spaces there.
Looks high,
That first floor, well, the commercial floor has to be relatively high to support all the mechanicals and get you in and out, and there's more slope to that site than it took me probably 6 to 8 years to figure that out and believe these guys. But moving across the 178 feet, we're probably 150 of it we're using from one end to the other. There's a good
2 feet of grade.
2.5 feet of grade, yeah, it doesn't seem like it, but there is.
So let's do that.
That's impactful.
And that affects, because we don't step the 2 commercial spaces, they're all at grade inside, right? So the one on this end is gonna be taller, and this is the end closest to Renee, which is gonna read taller than the other end in the section. So thankfully, at least to me, no one's gonna see this unless Renee's out on his deck looking this way, from the building, but he's the applicant. Meaning that back piece and how it all comes together. All right, next slide, please. That did give you a sense of the person standing on the top too, if you notice that.
Yeah, so
Okay.
that guy.
So this is the back, and we've got that cementitious material, then the metal up above. There's not much of a step back, there's no roof decks. On the back of the building, there are on the 2 back corners, right? So most units, I think all but one, if I'm not wrong, have some kind of outdoor space, or at least the Juliet balconies, right? So again, it's important to give people the 2 in this.
The center.
2 of the center on the front, yeah, sorry, so there are 2 of the 16, that's pretty good. And we did struggle to try and put one over the canopy, the door canopy, but it looked like it was maybe too risky and gonna look odd and great problems with people standing on the roof canopy. And next slide, please.
Before you go.
Yeah.
I'm having trouble understanding what, on the 4th floor, left and right ends.
Yes.
It's like a semi-transparent section there, like, what's?
That's recessed, isn't that just?
Oh, is that
distance?
what that is?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
the wall
Yeah,
beyond.
it's showing it's not,
Okay,
not
so
flush
that's-
with the back.
that's set in
We've
further.
changed the color to kind of give it some depth of perception there, so.
Oh, okay, but in reality, it'd be the same material.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah, good question. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so I think we got details in the plan set we gave the planning board for the cross sections of the windows and the brick walls, the brick, the lighting, that stone material on the base, the siding, et cetera. Next slide, please. We're almost done. So again, first floor, the big basement under that, 2,500 square feet of commercial space and that common access in the front of the building, the parking in the back. Second and third floors, next slide, please. Show 6 units each. These are not big units. If there are 16, they're all under, I think they're all under 1,000 square feet. So they're not that big. They're 2-bedroom units. There may be less and they may get bigger, but we wanted to design the site to make the parking work. And if there are less units, there'll be more parking and we'll need less off-site for the commercial. Yeah, so let's go to the next. So that's the second and third floor. The fourth floor is initially designed here for 4 units. And you see the roof decks on the front, everybody has a roof deck, and the 2 on the back corner and the 2 on the front recessed from Merrimack Street. Make sense?
Yeah, so looks like one elevator there in the middle.
Yep. 2 stairwells, 3 in total. Next slide, please. So just a couple of renderings that we had Rob do again from 2019 to the present. So that's the building looking up. So Renee owns the building and lives in the building on the corner here next to the police station. That's how we fit into the street. They're all in alignment, even if it doesn't look like it, they are. In fact, the new building we're proposing is set back a little further than Renee's, where he has a fairly narrow sidewalk in this building on the corner. It's wider. We have, I think we're at least 8 feet. And we are interested, and I think we're hopeful the planning board is as well, and the public works department, to move the curb further from the building so we could have a wider sidewalk. If they want to do that, we're supportive of it. That conversation occurred down at the Sunoco station. And for whatever reason, we all agreed to do it, but it got lost. It didn't happen. We didn't move the curb out down at Summer Street and Market, so it is kind of tight there. I suspect the planning department and public works will want to make sure we do that here, but that's up to them. It's not our real estate. We're not proposing it in the images. But we have an 8-foot sidewalk, so the no bunker.
What do you meant by the buildings are in alignment?
The street wall, running up, these buildings are relatively in the same plane, which you can see in the image.
The front plane is
But I wanted to point out, we're trying to relax a little bit regardless of what the city does with the curb line.
Okay,
We're projecting a bit with our canopies projecting over the sidewalk, but it's not an obstruction, right?
right.
But the building, I think the bump out on the front, which is about 18 inches or something at the canopy, that's probably in alignment with Renee's existing building. The rest of it's gonna be at least 18 inches wider, more or less.
And how about the ridge line, not the ultimate ridge line, but the one with the brick?
Yeah, like the 3-story.
How's that compared to the corner building?
Well, I'm gonna say we gotta be 4 feet above Renee at the cornice-ish. We'll get that answer. I don't know that we know it's sitting here, but yeah, we're a little taller because his building has,
I mean,
More
I'm
compression.
talking about I'm referring to the brick
yeah,
section.
yeah.
That's the section that pops up in the
A few
middle.
feet.
No,
just the-
discounting.
The
that.
top of the 3rd
Without
floor.
that, Yeah.
Yeah, I think we're gonna be a few feet taller
Where the brick
than
stops.
Renee. Because again, we got a long building and it's coming up higher next to Renee's
Yeah.
because of the slope we're trying to
Yeah.
chase.
And
And the
so I
ground,
keep asking about
Yeah.
this height because, but I know that one of the criticisms of some of the newer buildings that were put in, like, between the big parking lot and Merrimack, like, oh my God, it looks so big, and also the little less so the one that's.
you mean parcel 8, the one that was put in
The
the
one,
90s?
the one,
The one on the Green
large
Street
parking
lot?
lot between Merrimack and Green Street, like in there,
Yeah.
across the street from the police station, then there's that long.
Yeah, that's parcel 8.
Okay,
Yeah.
so that one,
Yeah,
it just kind of looms
Yeah, it's
over
a-
that area. And across the street's not so bad because it's set back quite a bit, it's not, a mess. So it's a big thing for me, this whole massing thing. It came up a lot with the institution for savings, but that was a very different
I mean,
situation.
I think what really works here and didn't work there, but how they tried to address it there, just walked through there the other night, late when no one's out. That is a big, long, big building, designed in a different era, right? And they were gonna put a mall there, and that was the consolation prize of putting a mall in there. That was all torn down for urban renewal, you know that. And they were gonna put a mall, and this was one of the last parts that got built before they did the switch over to restoration, was putting this building in there. But they pushed that building, they broke the street wall and pushed it back and created the arcade, right? That you walk up the stairs and then go underneath the front floor. So I think that took a lot of the curse off of the volume of the building. But it broke the street wall and created something that Newburyport doesn't have a lot of these arcades, right? But
Could I ask, I don't know which building you're talking about.
I'm sorry, it's right beside the gelato shop, you know, where Bartlett Street went into, it's the new, across from the firehouse, kind of,
Oh,
it's got the big long arcade, it's only about 40 years old.
got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and it is big, and it's got attention to it, to me, that isn't just its size, it's all these new elements that aren't Newburyport, where they intentionally didn't want it to be Newburyport, because that's a Secretary of the Interior way of doing things.
Yeah.
To differentiate, that's got a lot of differentiation, and I'm not sure it all worked, so it's got a weird, it doesn't draw you in unless there's a great business, like, that's just my experience. Anyway, so we're not trying to do that here. We want to engage the street, engage the people, have the big plate glass windows, the light, the great projecting signs. And hopefully make this a success to bring people to and from the garage and up and down this corridor.
We should have been another story taller.
Yeah. Okay, so one more rendering from the other side, which is kind of the sister to what you saw on the opening slide. This is the same building from the other side. From across sort of interlocks, right? If that's still
Okay, here
there.
you can see the corner, what should we call that? I still think of it as kind of a liquor, it's your building.
Oh, yeah, those wings, yeah,
Okay, so the
firewall.
eave
Yeah,
is definitely, you can see it's lower, but because of those end
yeah, the
firewalls,
yeah,
they give this perception that
Yeah.
it's almost the same height.
exactly.
It's very
So,
interesting.
right. Right,
Very
yeah,
interesting.
and that's unique to Renee's sort of placement there, sitting all alone, because I don't see any evidence of there ever being another row house there, like you get on State Street, it's interesting.
Yeah, of course, your other advantage is that the problem they had on State Street with the institution, was they were going into a residential
Right.
neighborhood where you don't have that people here.
Right.
So that's a big plus for
Yeah.
you guys.
I have a question if I could, just
Yeah.
for both of you guys, but maybe especially for Scott, can you just tell me, this rendering would be similar to, I don't know if you worked on the garage, did you work on the garage?
No.
Great, I don't like the garage. Okay, it's a garage, but I just like when it's.
So it's not similar to the garage.
I didn't want to say, I didn't want to insult them, but I don't want it to look like the garage.
Yeah, nor do
So
we.
is there, good, that was my first, is there another sort of building, in the city that at least would be a reference point?
Kind of reminds maybe old Atkinson building.
Yeah, I was just
Yeah.
29 Water Street.
Yeah.
It has some elements of that.
Yeah, where the point is.
Like the administration.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, all right.
And I think the height of this is very similar to the Atkinson.
Yeah, that's very reminiscent of that. It's got that turn. of the
Window
century.
wise.
Yeah, the arch,
Okay.
yeah.
Is it?
You got elements.
And
of,
these
like-
pilasters coming out, right? And you know, you even have a Victorian at the corner of Essex and State that's got, you know, on the State Street corridor with that pilaster look with the bricks, right? Coming down between the window bays. So, yeah, it's different, but it's got cues from other stuff. But unlike parcel 8, we're not so far off the reservation. We're trying to make something brand new that isn't familiar. We want this to be a background building. Not landmark. We want it to be an excellent background building, because that's really what Newburyport is. It's its bread and butter, right? It's not gonna be the Institute for Savings. We're just trying to fit in.
We get a ramen shop in there.
And sushi.
They laugh.
So I think that, I don't think there's any, I'm not, public benefits, you guys get it.
So I strike that.
Yeah, we'll just keep going. I think they're self-evident. So that's kind of the transition we're looking to bring to this site.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
No,
for that.
this is great.
Do we
Yeah,
have-
I think it's, that's the like with the witness, right? Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. That's perfect.
Very
That's
honest.
perfect.
Yeah, and it's got the, I assume it was intentional, kind of turn of the century vibe, but you can tell it's obviously not that old.
How many of you can actually see in your mind the little rounded balcony that's across from, Elbow Alley there? It's right near the old bowling place, off Market Square. Corellis used to be in there in real estate. I'm like so dating myself.
And on the riverside.
It's on the riverside. It's in one of the north row.
Mhm.
There's a building with a second floor, and I never noticed it for like 20 years. A great little curved balcony on the second floor. We pull it up, but that's in my,
You're referencing.
Yeah.
It's line.
anyway,
That could be a book.
it's
I thought
really
about
neat when you walk around and.
Architectural features.
Yeah, there. You know, and we all see that
Yeah.
multiple times a day. It's amazing how you missed it.
No.
Anyway,
Any other comments, questions about it?
I like the gas.
Hmm?
I like the gas.
you do?
Yeah, I guess.
I'm a big.
Where do you want us to put it?
For me, because it's.
I've wondered for some, why is there a gas station here? Now, so this is, I think this is. great.
Yeah, I moved to town in 1980 and I've wondered all these years, who's paying the taxes on this place just so that it's
Right,
there? you
that
know?
guy back there.
Remember, a millionaire or a billionaire moved into town about the same time that we bought it.
Yeah,
Did that change the dynamic?
he's not paying your
Guess
taxes.
what? I own the property next door.
Uh,
Okay, we'd love to work with the billionaire next door.
uh,
Our pockets aren't as deep. The billionaire next door does own the green building to the right.
The one that's lifted up. that one?
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
I love these.
Okay, so we're building this.
You know, and you got the whole Visco lot there, and Lombardi lot that's obviously owned by New England Development behind City Hall, waiting for something, right? So. I'm hopeful that if we're successful in doing this, this is going to be helpful for Newburyport in looking at new construction downtown to help New England Development see what works versus the kind of stuff they've been trotting out for the last 20 years, which isn't like this.
And I'm thankful that I have people like Nick Cracknell and Scott Brown on my team. In order to show you guys what we can do.
And how long have you been in that corner for?
1997, sir.
That's a surviving building from way back. There's some old
And he also
photos.
did a pretty good job fixing that.
So do we need a motion or to?
Yes.
Chairman, right, advisory
Yeah.
board.
4, 4, and 6. So that's a Scott question. I'm guessing the answer is yes, because there's 3 there, but.
No, not necessarily. We've had 3 stairs in order to provide some flexibility with the floor plan in the event that something changes.
Yeah, Renee, as you hear me say, is not locked into the number of units, or, there could even be a second floor office user. Until we get to the finish line, whatever use works in there is gonna go in there. The building isn't gonna change. But we've designed it to be flexible depending on where the market is when we get through all of this. Get the construction.
So good for your report, just to my only 2 cents that I, put in there, it's like, just like the rather painful episode of with the institution, streetscape. Is yet again a key here, but I think they've treated it a whole lot better than they did up there. It's, I'm struggling to, I think a reasonable case can make that the streetscape would not be, would actually be improved rather than adversely affected, just my 2 cents. I'd love to hear what you guys think.
Anyone else wanna chime in to help me?
Within 8 years, we should be able to avoid that.
Write this up. The way I look at it is that right now that after they built the parking garage, which overall, I think it was a good idea to remove some of the parking from right downtown, but there is a physical almost boundary that keeps people from making that short walk, and I think an empty, gravel pit basically isn't going to encourage people to keep going on that street. I mean, it's the way it feels when you're on that street, and I think all of us saying the same thing. It's like, how is this like this here? And to see something, I think that's well, when I first saw the plans, I didn't realize that you guys had also worked on the one on bottom of Winter Street. And I was like, oh, this looks almost, Summer Street. That looks just like this. Especially with the parking under back and the scaling of it and having, the mixed use, and that I think flows in directly to the rest of downtown, kind of that same feel. So I think it's successful from that point of view. I don't know if anyone else has anything that they're noticing or anything that they would like me to include on a potential advisory. No? Well, then I would love to entertain the motion to have myself, the chair, write the DoD advisory recommendation.
I'd love to move the chair.
Former chair.
Well, I know
right.
you're gonna say.
A second.
I'll second.
Thank you.
The highlight of your night.
All right, so motion on the floor is to have the chair write a DoD advisory recommendation. Andrew?
Yes.
All right, Scott? Chris Fay?
Yes.
Alan Markey?
Yes.
Thank you. And Glenn?
Yes.
Okay. And Mark?
Yep.
All right, and Chris?
Yep.
And myself, yes, so I will be writing the recommendations. Thank you.
Super.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, gentlemen. Well done.
Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yeah, we got one left, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, gentlemen.
Thank
So
you.
much.
You're welcome. Hey, thanks. Family, thank you, and so forth. Hey, that's really helped. Shop. Very up from now involved. They lived in the house life, lived everything on 10th Street before.
All right.
Thanks, photo.
Where's my gavel?
Very ramshackle.
Where's my gavel?
Green Street?
On Green Street, right where the police station is.
Or before I lived
Yeah,
here.
yeah, before my time too. Turn the corner.
All right, so 350 High Street, Preservation.
He was like, oh my God, what have I done?
And we have someone online, you said? Okay. Ryan Clemens, is that you online for the 350 High Street?
Yes, that's me. Good
Okay.
evening, Chair and Commissioners.
Right. Okay, we can hear you just fine. If you want to go ahead and give, I didn't quite hear you at the beginning. Give your name and address for the record, then you can dive into your presentation.
Absolutely. My name is Ryan Clemens of Mead, Tellerman and Costa, here tonight on behalf of Eileen and Connell Ryan, who are owners of 350 High Street and the Josiah Little house that's there. We're here tonight with the preservation restriction that the commission had previously reviewed and preliminarily approved, which we then sent to the Massachusetts Historic Commission, who has preliminarily approved it themselves and issued us a pre-signature approval letter to take it back to you to formally approve, and then to go on to the city council and then be signed by the mayor, and then back to the Mass Historic Commission. And so this preservation restriction now has only a few minor changes as the MHC requested, and is otherwise in the same form that you had previously approved it. So I'd be happy to take any questions from the commission.
Great, thank you. I assume most of you at least had a chance. I mean, was everybody on the board when we last met to discuss this? I think most of you were. Yeah, a few of you might not be. Hopefully you've all had a chance to look it over. Myself, I stumbled through those things since it's all a lot of legalese, but I try to look at the stuff that's more pertaining to us as far as,
Yeah, may I ask my question?
yeah, go for it.
Ryan, so is it, so the changes that Mass Historic asked for, are those already made in the draft that you posted or was posted?
They are, yes.
Okay, and this is kind of a question partly for you and partly for Caitlin. I did notice that it still had the verbiage that the grantee pays for the, filing that the document at the registry, where, traditionally the grantor has paid for that. So Ryan, what I'm talking about is the grantor, in other words, the owner, the person, owning the property that's getting the PR, has paid the taxes or whatever it is to file the PR with the registry. However, the verbiage in the actual PR says the grantee pays it, so, that we've been updating it ever since. I guess that change didn't quite make it into this one, was discovered relatively recently. I'm hoping that we could either incorporate that in, that one word change, or, have maybe some side agreement that the owner, even though it says the grantee pays for it, the tradition will continue that the grantor covers that.
Yeah, we willing to consider that. Could you please specify which page that appears on?
Yeah, sure. It's near the end. It'll take me just a second to get to it. It's near the end of the PR. Go way down, and when it's quite near the end. So it's a short, keep going, okay.
Recording and effective date on page 9.
Could be, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's it. 20, what is that, 22? Yeah.
We ran this change by Michael Steinitz of MHC recently, and he agrees that this is acceptable and actually more common to switch it. So we would ask.
Yeah,
if you
so
would do
you
that.
shouldn't run into a, yeah, so as Caitlin is saying, you shouldn't run into a problem with MHC saying, oh, you need some other change. No, should be fine.
Okay, yeah, we can definitely make that change. Caitlin, in terms of procedure, I mean, it's a one-word change. I can send a new page 9 to you, if that works.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, other
Thank
than
you.
that, I didn't see any red flags or anything like that.
Me either. No one else? Anything else to say or comment on it? All right, so we can look for a motion to approve, is it a,
Preservation restriction.
well, right, is it a draft approval, or how is that? I'm struggling with the wording on it.
Yeah, I'll be happy to make a motion that we give a final approval to this final draft that's already been approved by the Mass Historical Commission, so that it can be, what would happen next, if my understanding, if I'm wrong, Caitlin, is that we grant this approval, then the mayor and the city council all like to do it. Then it goes back to Mass, they sign off on it, and then finally it gets filed.
Yep,
Is that right?
correct, correct.
That's correct, yes.
So it's looking for a motion to approve the final draft that has been approved by
Exactly.
damage.
Yes. That's my motion. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Glenn.
Separate second.
And seconded, anyone?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. Sorry, all as I learn the ropes here.
No problem. Take your time.
All right, so we're voting on a motion to approve the final draft. Andrew, your vote?
Yes.
And Scott?
If I'm, was predates me, should I abstain or say yes?
You can abstain. Chris Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. And Alan Markey?
Yes.
Thank you. And Glenn?
Yeah, yes, I'm in favor.
Excellent. And Mark?
Yes.
Thank you. And Chris?
Yes.
And the chair votes affirmative as well. So the motion has been approved. And we've accepted that final draft. So it looks like it's on to the next step for you guys.
Brilliant. Thank you all very much. And Caitlin will get that page to you too.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks again. Bye.
All right, what's next on there? Correspondence, is that what that says?
Yeah. letter from MHC about the tower. The observation tower.
All right, I don't know, how to move on or move through this. What's up for discussion on this, I guess?
Okay, they would just, it wasn't even addressed to us, it was copied to you, Biff, as chair of this board. The letter to, whoever was, they're trying to get, there's a group, kind of a preservation oriented group, I believe is what, and they're trying to get the tower in the Atkinson Common on that, on the register, like, historic.
The national
Yeah.
historical?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
all right.
so so the letter came back from the Mass Historical saying, well, doesn't quite know in its own right, but it does contribute to Atkinson Common. If you wanna try to do something for the common, you know, then you'll need to, so that's what we need to do essentially. But it's telling that it doesn't qualify in itself.
As a structure.
Right, but it contributes to Atkinson Common. If you wanna have that designated, some like national landmark, whatever, go for it, you know, and this will contribute to it. That's how I read it.
Did they mention, I didn't even see this, so I'm sorry, I didn't know about it, but, did they mention exactly why the structure itself couldn't be, was it that?
They, not really, it didn't, you know, I don't remember the verbiage, something like didn't meet their criteria, something, I don't know, is it easy for you to call it up?
I got the impression that it was a letter kind of saying that we don't have enough information on this.
Yeah.
That was for the whole Atkinson Common.
Yeah, that was the information I got, so so they're not really sure how exactly that fits into the bigger story there.
Oh, I should look at that too.
You know,
They're basket, but
Not the shoreline.
yeah, it's not very long. Cause, okay, now, Chris, what you just said about being, that was their first response.
Okay.
And I guess this group did send them some more information on the tower.
Well, it says it this, is at present, the MHC does not have sufficient information on the park
Right,
to render an eligibility.
right, for the park, for the park in common, right. But you see, they put that if the tower is eligible, it would be as a contributing resource within Atkinson Common, as one of the features of the designed landscape.
That's really historic.
And it's kind of up to, what's her name, Christine Beard. In Amesbury, I guess she was the one who was been trying to get this through.
I think it's also an initiative of the Parks Commission.
Yeah, it could be.
Yep, along with Christine Beard.
Yeah. Have you said anything to Caitlin or anyone in Parks?
So it sounds like if they want to continue with that, they need to figure out
Yeah,
how to get the park as itself registered and
Right.
more information around it.
so that's my impression, but.
So I'm not quite sure I understand why we have to be involved with that. That has to go directly to them, right?
Yeah, it did, it was to her, and it's now going to get copied to, well, it's copied to me, because at the time I was the chair, but now.
Yeah, we reviewed it at one point. I assume this is just.
Yeah, we did
review it, but.
Yeah, the time came for us.
Yeah.
And they came back, said we need more information, that's what they were referring to there, apparently they sent them more information, they reviewed it, but they didn't quite hit them over the top.
All right,
So now we know.
That's why
they always have the battle. All right, all right, everyone have a chance to review the minutes. I didn't see any issues. I entertain a motion to approve the minutes, from what date was that, the 13th?
Yeah.
Motion to approve the minutes from the 13th?
to approve.
Thank you, sir. And a second?
Second.
Thank you, Chris. All right, motion to approve the minutes, Andrew
Yes.
and Scott?
Yep.
Chris Fay?
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry. Let's see. Alan Marquis. Alan, are you still there?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, yeah, okay. And Glenn,
Yes, but I would ask that there's one instance of my name which appears several times with the S on it, missing, Gretchen, I think it was in the paragraph about, the jail thing.
I reached my letter.
Oh, is that what it was?
Mark,
It was some.
okay. And Chris,
Yes.
and chair votes yes, so minutes have been approved. Well, any updates from me? Hey, I'm the new chair. That's my update. Is there a new vice chair?
Nice job. Good job.
Thank you.
Nicely done.
Great job. That's the only update I got. No planning director update, he's not here.
No.
So I don't know, we could take a motion to adjourn, I suppose.
Motion to adjourn.
All right, and second it? You second it?
Yeah.
All righty, and all in favor?
Aye.
No nays, so the motion is passed. Adjourned.
Well done.
Thank you.
I can give you my father's whole file.
All right.